Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Yeah. Well, he was easy to play with, Jaco, very easy to play with. And exciting, he's inspiring, man. When you have
Yeah.
somebody like that, he just takes the music higher.
Yeah.
Especially in those days when he was unspoiled. He was
I know
still
what you mean.
clean. He wasn't drinking or drugging, and his mind was very sharp, and he was in super shape as an athlete. I mean, Jaco was a serious athlete.
Wow.
And he was also coming out of the funk and the African groove, which was more where I was coming from.
Yeah.
And that group, a lot of times I was like the referee between Pat and Jaco. And they loved each other, I'm sure, and they were, obviously mutual respect, but they were coming from such different places,
Yeah.
And on the first gig, see, that record doesn't really represent how we played.
Oh, really?
That's why I had a hard time listening to it for many years. I never
wow.
even heard it. I think I heard it half of it once, and
Really?
then I listened to it later, and I said, "No, it's good. It's good. It's good. Very good.
It's incredible.
I enjoy it. I mean, I don't think I play that good, but
Oh,
it's good.
come on. It's
Jaco,
amazing.
Jaco, and Pat sound great. But Jaco, he would go into some funk, right? Because that's his shit, man, and the audience would go crazy. Jaco, and Pat. As soon as he did it, he would always bring it down to something really
Mellow.
slow and
Yeah.
quiet. And Pat's tunes had changes, like chords.
Yeah.
Some of them were 6 pages long of chords, right? Jaco, just give me an E. That's all. Just some E funk. That's all I need to do. And he wasn't giving Jaco any space to do that, right? Because he wanted to control it, be his music, which is beautiful,
Yeah,
But
sure.
Jaco was playing his music better than it ever was played, So he was elevating Pat's music because he made it even that kind of sound like danceable, funky,
Yeah.
But every time he'd funk out, like Pat would pull it. And so
Interesting.
eventually, and Jaco was coming all the way from Florida on the Greyhound bus, sleeping on somebody's couch, to make $50 a night, gig, In Boston, we play these places, Pooh's Pub, no big money or anything.
Yeah.
The Lily, not the Lily Pit, that was later. There was another club we played in Cambridge or something. But so eventually Jaco started Bogart. He would just make it go. He would just take over and make it go some funk shit. And Pat would say shit like, "Jaco, it's not a reggae, it's a waltz." And then Jaco would say shit like, because he was the king of hyperbole. Everything was the ist, I'm the greatest bass player in the world, But everything was, hyperbole. But so he said, to me, not to Pat. He said, Pat Metheny is the whitest motherfucker I ever heard, on the planet. And I said, no, he's not, Jaco. He's not. Believe me, he's good. So I was kind of like, a lot of times, like trying to bridge that divide, see. But, what a lot of people don't know is that we rehearsed all that music with Dave Holland,
Really? I didn't
Because
know.
Manfred did not want Jaco. The guy from ECM did not want, he didn't want electric bass.
Oh, yes.
And he didn't want a rock and roller. I guess that was, Jaco had some rep, electric, he didn't want electric bass. So this is not pop music, this is serious music, this is jazz. And because Pat wasn't a big star yet, I think that's his first record as a leader, he kind of, this is your record company is telling you, don't use this guy, use this guy. He had to listen, he felt he had to listen, And so we rehearsed all that music with Dave Holland.
Wow. How was that with Dave? Like,
well, okay, let me say this, because I don't want this to go out and sound like I'm, casting,
No,
negative
sure.
about. listen, Dave Holland is a great bass player, and anytime I get a chance to play with Dave Holland, I'm like, thank you, Lord, for giving me one of the all-time great bass players. But it was nothing like with Jaco, man.
Different vibe.
It was more intellectual, man. It was more like a formula or something, you know. It was more like equations kind of shit. Whereas with Jaco, it was
soulful more or something.
Funky, man. It was funky, just alive, and it was like no comparison. And at that time I wasn't into the ECM vibe. I didn't get along with the guy too well. I had a few, so I wasn't even. So I told Pat afterward the rehearsal. I said, okay, I gotta say two things. I say, if you use Dave Holland instead of Jaco, you're crazy. That's one.
Well.
And here's two. If you use Dave Holland instead of Jaco, I'm out. Get a different drummer, because we should do it with Jaco, and I don't want to record with this guy anyway, because I was a tough guy back in them days. You know, I acted that way. I'm not proud of it, but I was could be that way sometimes. And Pat, to his credit, he said, "No, you're absolutely right. It's got to be Jaco." He heard it right away. There was no comparison but David is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, sure. No.
With Jaco, yeah, it was a whole other vibe, man. And so, and there's one tune on that record you would know better than me, because I don't even know the title. I told you I've only listened to the thing like 3 times in my life.
Wow.
But it's a slow one, and Jaco plays the melody and takes a solo. It's kind of like
Missouri Uncompromised. No.
I think it's like Midwestern
Night's Dream. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
It's kind of
Yeah. Oh man.
Right. And Jaco said, that melody would sound great if I doubled it. Right. And Manfred didn't want to let him do it.
Wow.
He kept saying, this is not pop music. We don't overdub. We don't produce. This is real music, which means, it's got to be all one take, no editing.
Yeah.
That's the classical attitude. Although Glenn Gould edited the shit out of his classical stuff.
Bizarre.
Yeah, you're making a record. Why not edit?
Yeah.
Why not produce? I overdub on a lot of my records, or have other people come overdub on things. I have no problem with that. You get a great sound. There's no leakage.
Sure.
And you can do several takes. And, there's advantages to it anyway. But he didn't want to do it. And they were arguing back and forth like 40 minutes, And all this time wasted. I said, man, he could have done it already, man. Let him do it. And so finally, kind of begrudgingly said, okay, but one take. If we don't get it in one take, we go on to something else. I don't want to do this, And Jaco said, okay, let me hear it once. And he played it. He's listening. His ears were so sharp. He said, I got it. And you listen to the solo. It's 2 basses. He doubled it, and it's like one gigantic bass.
Man.
And now, if you try to play along with something that's already there, if it's in the pocket, if it's in the 8th note, baba do bidi do that's
kind of easier.
Hard.
Yeah, sure.
But if it's bo beep boo boo, it's kind of rubato. That's really hard, and he nailed it. And you hear this thick sound, and it sounds like Wagnerian bass. It was 2 Jacos, but he had to argue for 40 minutes before he let him do it. But I'm glad he did. And I'm glad I made that record, and I'm glad that Pat held his ground on that, and had enough cojones to say no, it's got to be Jaco, even though he was a little bit scared. He didn't want to blow his deal, with ECM.
Yeah, sure.
That was a big deal for him, because he was definitely dedicated to being a successful musician, and he's accomplished it many times over. But so he had to be careful.
Yeah.
Jazz.